Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Brian Russ, the Superintendent of Schools. We'd like to welcome you today and thank you for being with us. Also like to thank you for all the questions that were submitted. We've tallied those and we're prepared to respond over the next 2 hours. Again, I'd like to say that we're in the middle school library. The entire administrative team is here. We are socially distanced by at least 6 feet. If not more. We are also using the barriers that we would be putting in the classroom. Those are also on each of our tables. But we will be removing our masks. We will be removing our masks so that you can hear us more clearly. Again, I'd like to welcome everyone. Again, I know how challenging and difficult this time is for all of us, for our families, for our students, for our teachers, our support staff, our administrators, and our Board of Education. And I just want to thank you for all the support that you have provided to the district, including taking the time out to be here today and submitting your questions. We're really grateful for our partnership, and we know that's the way we're going to get through this. This is, like I said earlier, it's a difficult process for all of us. But one step at a time, and I think we are going to create a model that really works for our students and their families. It's a work in progress for certain, and each day things change. So we appreciate your patience and continued support. And I'd like to thank all those who have sent us notes of support. We've received numerous emails and phone calls from our community, just kind of thanking us for what we're doing. But it wouldn't be possible without the partnership that we share. And so today we're prepared to look at major topics. The questions that we received have been divided. So we hopefully will answer all of your concerns over the next 2 hours. And at this point in time, I'd like to turn it over to Mark Mambretti, who will be the moderator for today's session.
Thank you, Brian. So just some ground rules of what we kind of did. We'll be going over 3 PowerPoints. We'll be going over them briefly. All 3 of those PowerPoints are located on the COVID-19 section of our website. In addition, they were gone over in great detail at the board admin retreat last week, and a full recording of that was done there as well. Due to the number of questions, I've did my best to group them by theme or common question, and then kind of pick 1 or 2 of those questions that represent what I think the multiple questions are. Many people had the same question or a very similar question. And we're going to start from biggest questions and then kind of get down to the nitty gritty at the end. We're not sure exactly the timing of how this is going to go, so we're going to try and ask the questions that would impact the most people first and then go from there. If you need to follow up with anything that gets mentioned here, we have a number of options, obviously reaching out to the superintendent or the building principal. Those that want to interact in live time here, we have an email address set up, reopen@eak12.org, reopen at eak12.org. That will be monitored throughout today's presentation, and actually that email will remain live for the whole upcoming year. That comes in and then gets funneled to the person most appropriate to answer it. However, as they come in during this presentation, I'll just do my best to ask them out loud. It's really for nuance or clarification. It's not so much for an ongoing or parallel conversation. Most of these 3 sessions are going to be a repeat, but obviously if different questions come in between the different sessions, I'll add those and ask them. And all of these sessions will be recorded and posted on the website just as soon as we are able to. Most likely first thing, well, not first thing tomorrow, after tomorrow's session is done. We know that there's going to be a million more questions, very building specific, department specific, or in your case, child specific. Please make sure you try and go right to the source on those, whether it would be the director, the principal, the teacher, but know that the entire member of the administrative faculty is here to support you in all of this. So what we're going to do is, just to set the stage, we've asked the 3 principals to quickly go over their building reopening PowerPoints. Again, the in-depth going over of this is recorded on our district website under the board admin retreat, but it's just going to allow us to set the stage, and a lot of the questions that came in are going to be answered by this, but I'll also make sure to tie those questions back to that answer. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Jess Lyons representing Parkdale, and she'll be able to share the Parkdale reopening plan.
Okay, everybody can hear me? Okay. I went over this in depth last week. I'm gonna go through it a little bit quicker so we have time to answer everybody's questions today. As Mr. Membretti had said, it's available in its entirety on our school website also. The biggest question, or one of the biggest questions that I've received was, why is Parkdale doing 4 half-days a week as opposed to the model that the middle and high school has adopted? So a few things that considerations that went into our rationale when deciding to do this with the younger students. First, we feel it's important for younger children to have the consistency of being in the classroom as many days as possible for routine, structure, and in-person contact with their classroom teacher. Also, teaching of the core content for ELA and math will occur by the classroom teacher. That's what we'll be focusing on during those 2.5 hours, 4 days a week. And then reinforcement and supplementary activities will be completed at home. There won't be any necessarily brand new teaching having to be done by a babysitter or by a parent in those 2 core areas. Also, students will not be moving in the hallways to go to specials, to go to lunch, to go to rec, etc. This is going to minimize their exposure to other areas of the building and to other students in the building. They will basically be spending the 2.5 hours in their classroom and or outside for outdoor learning. Also, being in the building for a half a day will reduce the amount of time that the younger students do have to wear a mask. And in general, lunch, recreation, and specials are very social times for students. And if we did have these activities during the school day, they just wouldn't look the same as they normally would. Our hybrid schedule, I think it's pretty much out there what it will be like. The beginning of the alphabet will attend an AM session. The PM, or the later in the alphabet, L to Z, will attend an afternoon session. We will have remote learning for the opposite half of the day and on Wednesdays. And I did send out a survey to parents last Wednesday. It is due by tomorrow, indicating if you'd like to be considered for the opposite time of the day based on childcare or transportation needs. And exceptions will also be made for some students with special needs. I've also received the question if they can be dropped off earlier than 8:45. We are working on that. I have to work with the bus company and my staff to make sure we have staff available for maybe an 8:30 and 8:35 drop off and a place for the students to wait until school begins. I did create some sample schedules for AM session students and PM session students, and Wednesdays would look different than the other 4 days. Again, you can go to our website and click on this PowerPoint, and you can see some sample schedules for AM learning, PM in-person sessions, and then what Wednesdays would look like. We will have time for kindergarten students and families that are new to the district to have an opportunity to tour Parkdale. And class lists will be finalized in the coming weeks, and we will make notification to the families of who your child's teacher will be. Transportation, a couple of changes. If your children will be riding the bus, we've reduced the bus to a maximum of 22 students. They will be required to wear facial coverings. They will, when they get on the bus, they will be seated from back to front in order to minimize their exposure to other students in the seats. There will be one student per seat with exceptions for siblings. And our bus company for student is using a cleaner called Zuno that does provide protection for up to 30 days. We will also, between the AM and PM run, we will sanitize high touch areas. And we will also be creating, sending out a video on bus safety for students to watch, how to get on the bus, how to sit properly, how to get off the bus, and then how to enter the school building. As I said before, our drop-off times right now are 8:40 and 12:40. We are working, some parents had expressed 8:30 would work better with their work schedules. Again, that's a work in progress. We have to secure the staffing and space to be able to hold the students until they go to their classrooms. We'll have designated doors. Usually students all enter through Girard Avenue. We will have a door for each grade level, I believe, that they will enter through that is closest to their classrooms to minimize the bottleneck at the front doors. In-school temperature screenings will occur, and I'm anticipating an increase in parent drop-off. So we will be disseminating that information to you as to where you would drop off your child in the morning and pick them up at the end of their half of day. Dismissal, the same thing as arrival, designated doors. The teachers will escort their students to the bus at 11:15 and 3:15 to make sure they socially distance as they're walking out. Again, we'll have a designated area for parent pickup. If you have picked up your child in the past, you've come into the cafeteria. That will not look the same due to the how crowded the cafeteria got. So we will have locations outside of the building for you to pick your child up. We are following hygiene and sanitation requirements from the CDC and Department of Health. We are installing hand sanitizers in each of the classrooms and throughout the building. Our classes will take hand washing breaks during the half day upon entry into the building, before they have a snack, and after returning inside from outdoors. And between the AM and PM sessions, we do have an hour and a half. So the classrooms will be disinfected with electrostatic sanitizing sprayers, and high-touch areas, including desk surfaces, chairs, door handles, sink handles, shared objects, will be cleaned in between the two sessions. Multi-stall bathrooms will be completed by the cleaning staff at designated times throughout the day, or we're going to increase those times. Drinking fountains are limited to bottle fill-up purposes only, and any toys, classroom objects, community play materials will be disinfected. If not between the two groups, at the end of the day, and the afternoon group would just use different toys or classroom objects. And if the playgrounds are open, they will be disinfected daily. Breakfast and lunch, we'll send home breakfast and lunch for families who qualify for free and reduced meals. And if you do wish to purchase your breakfast and or lunch for your child, we will have available an online system, and we will send those home with the students. Movement in the building will be limited because, like as I said earlier, students will remain in their classroom during the 2.5 hours, or they will be outdoors. But for movement purposes, if we are to move about the building, and for the adults, our center staircases will be up only and staircases down only. Classes will walk outside to destinations when possible, and there'll be single line if there ever was to have two classes or people passing in the hallway. In the classroom, we will place our desks 6 feet apart. That is why we cannot accommodate a full return to school. We don't have the space to be able to space everybody 6 feet apart, or the staff to be able to do that. So desks will be 6 feet apart, and all desks will have protective 3-sided barriers. Each student will have their own 3-sided barrier, and barriers will be changed out between the AM and PM session. So a barrier would have a child's name on it. If they're in the morning session, after that's done, that'll be removed and put into their cubby. And then the new one for the afternoon session will be put up on the desks. Desk surfaces, chairs, high-touch areas will also be sanitized between the two sessions, as I had said earlier. Masks will be worn by students and staff, and areas and times will be designated during the day for students to take a mask break. Those include when they're at their desk, 6 feet apart with their barrier up on their desk. Children will be able to take a mask break, and when they go outside. At 3rd and 4th grade, the teachers team, meaning there's 2 teachers. One teaches ELA to both classes, and the other teaches math. For these purposes, we still will be teaming. However, the teachers will switch classrooms. The students will not be getting up and switching rooms. As I said earlier, teachers will use outdoor instruction where health and safety conditions and physical space allows. And we received a question about supply lists. We did send them home in June, and if you went out and bought the items on that supply list, that is wonderful. You don't need to change anything or return anything if you don't have the receipt. We will definitely use all of those supplies, but we did receive some questions about people had not gone out and shopped yet. So we are going to modify the list, and they will be available later this week. And as I said before, if you already bought the supplies, no worries. We're still going to use all those supplies. Our specials. Teachers will visit the classrooms, introduce themselves at the beginning of the school year. We'll have a special area Google Classroom for each grade level. And specials will be offered synchronously and asynchronously on Wednesdays, and a schedule will be sent with the days and times. If you refer to my sample schedules on the link earlier, some examples of what that would look like are on those schedules. Special area teachers will also record and post to the Google Classrooms if students are in childcare and unable to watch their specials live on any given day. And we're working on lessons for 4th grade for band and orchestra. Again, that's still a work in progress at this point. AIS Resource Room Support Services. They will also be visiting the classroom just as the special area teachers to introduce themselves. There will be Google Classroom for each, and services will be offered synchronously and asynchronously, and a schedule will be sent with those days and times. Again, it takes us a couple weeks to set those schedules and for the providers to talk to each other to make sure no services are overlapping at any given time in the day. So those schedules will be worked out later into September. All of our teachers will also be having their own Google Classrooms. If you were here in the spring, we had a whole Google Classroom for an entire grade level. We will still have Google Classrooms, but it'll be 1 per classroom teacher. And every student will receive a school-issued Chromebook. Chromebooks will be brought back and forth to and from school. Chargers will be kept at home. And if a family does not have internet access, please contact the main office. Communication between the school and families will be essential. I will continue to use our school messenger system to send out updates via email and text. Teachers will use email, phone, and the Remind app to communicate with parents. As I said, Google Classrooms will be used by each teacher, and please don't hesitate to reach out to the classroom teacher or myself with any questions or concerns. We will have a new greeter station at Parkdale. This is just an FYI. As you walk in the first set of doors and go to the left, it will be our greeter station. You do not need to turn to the right to come to the main office. And these are just some additional websites that we used to develop our plans.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jess. As you shift between screens, we're now going to ask Matt Brown and Bill Roberts to present the middle school, high school plan. Again, following this, we'll kind of go into some questions, some of which were answered by the presentation. Some of them are still hanging out there. And for anything that pops up during the presentation, reopen at eak12.org. Reopen at eak12.org is our live email box to interact with nuance or clarification. At this point, indicating that they're ready in a minute.
Sorry.
Okay. All right, Mr. Brown and presentation mode. There you go, Mr. Brown and Mr. Roberts.
Okay, you can see everything? Great. So take this off when I'm talking. Welcome. Good to be seen by everyone. What Mr. Roberts and I are going to do is very similar to what Ms. Lyons did. We'll go a little bit quicker through some of our slides because a lot of what she covered is going to look very similar district-wide. But we're going to show you the middle school plan here, and then Mr. Roberts will just butt in and add his 2 cents as they come up. So our hybrid schedule, as you most likely know at this point at the middle school and high school, in grades 5 through 12, there will be 1 cohort of students on Monday and Tuesday. They're called the blue group. There will be an in-person learning Monday and Tuesday. The other group, the red group, will have in-person learning on Thursday and Friday. and then remote learning will take place for the rest of the weeks. You will see on the PowerPoint, there's a link for the new EAMS bell schedule. We did not change the bell schedule very much. The students will still have their traditional 8 periods throughout the day. What we did do is add a lunch. Actually, we added 2 lunch, so the students will be spread out more in the cafeteria, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. Lastly, there's an important note on the bottom there that the blue group will be in session, in-person learning on Thursday, September 10th, and the red group on Friday, September 11th. And the reason for that is that each of the 2 cohorts of students that are coming to in-person learning will have the opportunity to meet their teachers that first week and to go through some of our safety protocols and a brief orientation.
The only thing I want to add from the high school perspective regarding the bell schedule is we'll maintain our normal bell schedule as well. There might be some slight variations on the amount of time that we allow students to pass from class to class. And some changes with activity period, but for the most part, the schedule stays the same as it has in the past.
And this is just an example. It shows that the in-person learning is taking place for the blue group Monday and Tuesday, and for the red group Thursday and Friday, with all students remote on Wednesday. Some of our rationale and clarification is obviously it limits the number of students in the building to about 50% or less, which helps with the social distancing and in the hallway. And we are going to follow our 6-day schedule. So we will still have the A through F days. And yes, Wednesday does count as a letter day. So that first day will be A, then B, and then they'll just continue right on. We're not skipping any of the days. And then obviously as the students who are at home, engaging in the remote instruction, that'll take place for the 3 days. The next slide here just shows that attendance will be taken. This is something that's very important. I know there's been some questions raised that we will answer about the expectations when students are remote, and will it look different in the fall as it did in the spring? And the answer to that is yes, it will. And one of the greatest differences is that attendance must be taken. We will be taking attendance both while students are remote and while students are in person. Anything to add, Mr. Roberts?
The only thing I want to add to this slide is Mr. Brown did say that things will look slightly different in the fall as they were in the spring of last year. And one of the biggest differences at the high school level, and I know in portions of the middle school as well, but in the high school, when students are with us, obviously in session on that Monday, Tuesday, or that Thursday, Friday, they're going through their normal schedule, every period, every class. When they are at home, they're going to be tuning in for live instruction in the core areas. Again, we still have the expectation that there will be Regents exams and AP exams, and there's no flexibility at this time with that curriculum. So again, students will be expected to tune in for their core area classes when they're at home.
Okay, and then prior to September 10th, unfortunately for a lot of the students who are transferring to a new building, so at the middle school, the incoming 5th graders, and at the high school, the incoming 9th graders, we weren't able to provide them with some of the opportunities that we typically do. I know for our incoming 5th graders, we typically have buddy day, we have parent information night. A lot of these times that we were not able to have. We will have an opportunity for all of the 5th grade students and for any student who is new to the district coming to the middle school and high school as well, where we will provide opportunity to come in, go for a tour, meet with various personnel, and we are here to make sure that you really feel comfortable and see the building prior to the first day of school. We will say that typically we would have liked to have already sent out the individual student schedules by this point. And clearly we're a little bit behind in that process due to all the uncertainties, but both the high school office and the middle school office, we are working very, very hard. And we're hoping to have that information finalized within the next week or two. So yes, it is a little later than normal, but please know that we're working very hard to make that happen.
And the same at the high school. We're planning, as of today, tentatively looking, and I apologize for the short turnaround, but possibly next Friday, of coordinating mini orientation sessions of approximately an hour, where our incoming freshmen and new students to East Aurora High School will be able to come in for a brief orientation session, receiving their schedule, meeting their counselor, meeting a few teachers, and giving them an abbreviated experience of what we would traditionally have at our new student orientation. But we thought it was going to be important to have that be a part of our transition to the high school. So again, I'll send out information on that in the next day or two, but we would have very small group orientation experiences at some point in the upcoming weeks. Any other students who are anxious about returning to school and want to have a chance to visit the high school, please reach out to our high school main office, and we can also arrange that.
And I would echo that for the middle school as well. If there's any student who, really wants that time to just come in feeling a little bit nervous about it, please do call the middle school office and we will arrange for that to happen as well. The transportation slide, I'm not going to spend any time on because this looks very consistent district-wide. And I believe Ms. Lyons went through that pretty thoroughly. The arrival at the middle school, we are going to increase the number of entrances. We're going to have 4 doors in total where students will be able to enter the building. The in-school temperature readings will occur. And for those students who are dropped off or ride their bike, which is a lot of them, or walk, we typically in the past had them, if they arrived before our 7:45 bell, they would just come meet in the cafeteria. And our cafeteria was very full. So what we're looking at now is we're going to have different locations for the teacher or for the students to go when they get here until that 7:45 bell rings. For example, we'll utilize the multi-purpose room, possibly one of our gymnasiums, the cafeteria still as well, but we're really going to make an effort to hold that social distancing standard very high and follow through with that the best we absolutely can. And then as you can see here, excuse me, just read it. I got a little ahead of myself, but we will allow the students to be dropped off still from around 7:30 to 7:45. One thing that you will notice, parents, if you've not stopped by the middle school, the sidewalk on North Grove has been completely redone and it's beautiful. And in the past, you may have been one of those parents or students who opened the door and stepped directly into a mud puddle, and that was not the best way to start your day. Now we have brand new sidewalks, so we're hoping to increase the amount of distance that people or that students are dropped off by their parents. So we're hoping to have a quick, speed up the process a little bit of the drop off and the pickup, as we anticipate there may be more students who are dropped off in the morning. And then students who ride the shuttle bus at the middle school, there's typically 5 buses that come from the high school down to the middle school for the shuttles. And what we'll do there is just slightly different. We'll only release 1 bus at a time, and we'll use 2 entrances of the building, just so there's less of the, the gatherings of many students. Mr. Roberts, anything to add there?
The only thing I want to add is regarding the last bullet there, specific to the high school. When students arrive for early period, so that early bus run, they'll enter the building again through designated entrances that I'll further clarify with the students prior to school starting. And then they're going to report immediately to their early period class. And I believe this was a question that was asked. At least for the beginning of the year, we will not be using our student lockers. So students, as soon as they enter the building, they're going to go to their early period class. And then the second bus run, when students arrive, they're going to go immediately to their first period class. Something that, and I know Mr. Brown will touch on this, we will not have the traditional homeroom that we've had in the past. That's truly an unnecessary gathering of students. So we're going to incorporate that into the first period class, and then take attendance, have our homeroom announcements, and start with first period. So when students arrive on that second run, they'll go immediately to first period.
And we will follow the same model at the middle school. There's some slight differences. The buildings are different, and depending on where the student starts. What we did is we will still follow our traditional homeroom schedule. However, we're linking the student schedules, so whoever they have in first period will be their homeroom teacher. We've been able to do this for about 95% of the students, and the other 5 we're working on a solution for this issue. But yeah, we will definitely follow that same approach, and there will be no locker uses at the middle school as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a future slide. The dismissal, again, at the middle school, it won't look very much different than it has in the past, because we've always used multiple doors for the exit. We will just have increased staff members and signage and everything out there to help make sure that students are following our social distancing measures. Breakfast and lunch. So this is where it looks a little bit different at the middle school. Typically in the past, pre-COVID, we had approximately 260 students at a time using our cafeteria. And as you know, our cafeteria is fairly large. Under this new model where we've added lunch periods, the 5th graders will all eat together with the 5th graders, 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders, following suit. So there will be 1 grade level at a time. And there will be approximately 50, a little less than 50% of those students. So we are anticipating that the most amount of students that we'll ever have at a given time in the cafeteria is between 60 and 70, probably closer to the high 50s to 60. This will allow us for adequate spacing. We are using student desks that we've removed from the classrooms that will be spread out. We're going to spread them out with the greatest distance as possible between them, hopefully not just the 6 feet, but hopefully 8, 10 to 12 feet. They'll all be facing the one way. We will have garbage bags, spread out throughout the cafeteria as well as a lot of social distancing and floor stickers on where the students should stand as they wait to go purchase lunch or snacks. So Roberts, anything to add there?
Same precautions at the high school. The only difference is that in our lunchroom, we do have to divide into 2 locations because of the sizes of our lunchroom and the number of students who are eating at any given time. So we'll have half of our group in the cafeteria, 1 per table. That will include our seniors, because at least when the weather is nice, I'd like our seniors to go outside and eat at the picnic tables that the previous senior classes have purchased. And then the second location is going to be in the first gym. We'll have an equal number of students eating their lunch in the first gym. So we'll have 2 cafeterias going at the same time for all 3 of our lunch periods.
Okay, and the next slide here is our cleaning and disinfecting. And this slide is the same as the one at Parkdale. So this is going to definitely be a district-wide consistency will take place there. Movement throughout the building. We will expect students and staff to wear masks at all times. There may be times within the classroom that students are allowed mask breaks. Those are some procedures that we're putting in place right now. And when will that happen? Obviously with the barriers and social distancing, that is going to be something that we figure out more in the team level of how those mask breaks will take place. Another thing that's important to notice is when the students come, there will be a lot of tape in the hallways. We are going to designate specific traffic patterns. For example, some stairs may be upstairs only versus downstairs only, because we're trying to limit the amount of face-to-face encounters that students have. We will also have our traffic patterns within the halls, some arrows, where we're keeping students against the right wall with a space in the middle where no students are. So the students will be following one-way traffic. And again, they won't be using their lockers. So this will really help with the hallway, the amount of students that will be together in one area. Mr. Roberts, anything to add? Let me finish the slide, then you can jump in there. So sorry about that. The other thing that's important is, and I believe Mrs. Lyons said this, we will have bathrooms will have consistent cleaning times, and especially the stall bathrooms. We will have stickers out there in the hallway on where students should stand to wait to use the bathroom. And what we're looking at now is how exactly are we going to monitor that? Are we going to have someone there? And these are some of the things that we're working through right now, but we will definitely have something in place to ensure that the students are safe and that everything's clear when they use the bathrooms. Mr. Roberts, anything to add?
Just one thing regarding the traffic patterns. If you're familiar with a high school, we have an A wing, a B wing, and a C wing. The B wing is the center of the building, and it is a circle. So we're going to take advantage of that, and that will be one-way traffic all the way around the B pod circle. And then the A, which is the athletic area, and the C, which is down by the auditorium, English, art, music, tech, that'll be out and back, always staying. Traffic will always be on the right side, hugging the lockers, with a good distance between the traffic on the right side and the left side. So very comfortable with our patterns for movement around the building, and those will be clearly marked on the walls and on the floors.
Okay, in the classroom, it's going to look very similar to Parkdale. All desks will be at least 6 feet apart. We will have the plastic barriers that we are using here. They are very clear to see through, and that's one of the things we're testing out to see the echo, and they seem to be working very well. Masks will be worn by all students, and again, we will designate certain mask break times because we do recognize that students are going to need that time. And one other note is, if you've been in the middle school in recent years, you have noticed that there's been additional cloth furniture, couches, things like that have been brought into certain classrooms for different types of learning and different types of instruction. Flexible seating, they call it. And it really is good to go with some of our good pedagogical choices that we've made with our curriculum. But obviously, due to these times, we've had to remove many, if not all of those. Anything that is cloth or cannot be cleaned or disinfected or sanitized has been removed from the classrooms. Anything to add to that, Mr. Roberts? No, okay. Technology, the same as what Ms. Lyons said about Parkdale, is all students will bring their Chromebooks home nightly. We do expect that they're charged at home every night. The good news is our Chromebooks are very good quality, and they will hold a charge for more than 10 to 12 hours. So as long as they're properly charged at night, we should not have any issues. But certainly we will have opportunities, for students if they have any issues with their Chromebook, where we will certainly support them. And again, any families without internet access or any technology difficulties should just contact the school. We will certainly support you. And lastly, other information such as physical education and music, anything vocal or band. Whenever there's an activity requiring that students either speak loudly or breathe heavily or project their voice or breath, the parameters are saying that we have to have 12 feet between these students in all directions. So those are things that we're taking into consideration as we build the schedule. Obviously, we're working with our physical education teachers, band and orchestra teachers, on how can we still have meaningful lessons take place while following all of these guidelines. Please note that students will not change for physical education classes to start the year. We will not be using the locker room to start the year. So these are some of the things that, as the virus hopefully decreases and things start to come back to normal, that we may decide to ease up on. But to start the year, we will not be changing for physical education class. The other thing to please note, the middle school supply schedule is up on our website now, and there were a lot of adjustments made. Typically in the past, each teacher or subject area required a 3-ring binder, and we've limited that to the use of 1 3-ring binder for the grade level, with then additional folders instead, because as we recognize, the students will be carrying their materials with them in their backpack. Anything to add, Mr. Roberts?
No, the only thing specific to music, just so people are aware, we are looking at using our new music rooms, but also our stage and alternative locations for our groups. Although we'll have half the population there on any given day, we may need to move to other locations that provide us that 12 feet of social distancing. But music and phys ed will, as they should, will continue to be a major part of our program.
Okay, then the last slide here is the same as Ms. Lyons, of just additional information. And I urge you, if you have any questions, to go to the reopening plan and our COVID-19 information page that is on the website. And I'll turn it back to Mr. Membretti. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Brown, Mr. Roberts. We have a number of questions coming in, and I thank you. Just so you kind of have a sense of the main categories I'm going to ask questions in. And so if you have a question that hasn't been answered yet, know that we're going to kind of chunk them this way. The first is going to kind of be when and how do we reevaluate? How do we pivot models? So that'll be that theme, and there's some questions below it. There's going to be a number of questions on general teaching and learning. There's going to be questions on how the spring experience is different than the fall experience. So last spring versus this fall. Number of questions regarding special ed services, special ed students. There's going to be some questions about what the in-person experience is going to look like. There's going to be some questions on what the virtual or remote experience will look like. There'll be some questions on what Wednesday is going to look like. There's some questions about the 4-day model, the specifics of the 4-day model or the 4 half-day model. Number of questions regarding health and safety and other more procedural or medical type things. Some questions on building and facilities use, and then some odds and ends that really didn't fit into one of those categories. So if you've asked a question and it hasn't been answered yet, I'm going to try and kind of fit it into its appropriate chunk. Again, if there are those questions, reopen at eak12.org. I know a number of you have found that already. And again, we've decided this is the first time through this. We're going to try and go with shorter answers that are substantive but shorter so that we can keep going. We're going to err on the side of trying to get all the questions answered, even if not fully in depth, rather than answer some in depth and leave others unanswered. So that's going to be our strategy, but we're going to do our best to move through it. Again, this will be recorded, and the following 2 presentations, tonight at 6:30 and tomorrow at 8 a.m. will be recorded too. So I think the first round of questions, if I think some were answered by the PowerPoint, I may just refer to that, but still give respect to the question by asking it. But then anyone in the room who wants to pop in can do that. And I think the first one probably would go to the superintendent on when do we reevaluate? How do we reevaluate? When do we pivot models? And some of the questions that came in that group are, is it our goal to fully reopen and get kids back in school? Why not just start with a full open? Why not high school or secondary stay at home and elementary students come a regular schedule? So anything regarding the models and the pivoting to go from there.
Sure. Yeah, so why don't we just take a look at each one of those questions? Is it our goal to fully reopen and get back kids back into school? Of course, that's our ultimate goal, and it's just the next question kind of goes right along with it. Why not just do a full open? Just because we're not capable of doing that in accordance with the CDC guidelines in terms of making sure that we're creating safe spaces for our students. The social distancing piece and making sure that that's happening in the classroom won't allow us to bring all of the students back. If those change, if those requirements change, if the governor continues to see the state moving in a positive direction, and the CDC and the Department of Health feel that it's safe to remove that requirement, then there's a really good chance that we could bring the kids back. That's why we were required to create 3 models of a full return to school, a hybrid model, and a remote model. Why not high school and secondary stay home and the elementary and middle kids come in? Again, we considered that option, taking our elementary and middle school and spreading them throughout all of the buildings in the district. And then when we considered not bringing the high school students in to meet with their teachers, for at least part of the week, we felt it was just unfair in regard to just the connections that you make. Obviously, being in person, we all want to be here. We know the value of that. And so we felt it was important that all of our students have some direct contact with their teachers and the support staff.
Excellent. Our next category is just going to be some general teaching and learning questions regarding the education experience coming back. Ms. Lyons, you kind of talked about the why the half days at Parkdale. Some of the follow-up questions that come from there are, what is the educational focus of that on-campus time going to be? What is the value of the 4 half days as opposed to 2 full days? And then maybe for Ms. George and Mr. Wicks, extra cleaning or busing costs that came with this model. Ms. Lyons?
Yes, as I stated earlier, we are going to be focusing on ELA and math during those 2.5 hours. Those are really the foundations in elementary school, is the reading, the writing, the grammar, the math. And science and social studies will be taught in person when we're able to. Otherwise, it will be remote activities for students to complete at home. Again, our teachers have never had classes of 10 to 12 students. So we're going to wait and see how the first few weeks go and how fast they can get through the ELA and math, and then that'll determine how much time we have to focus in person, at least, on the other areas. So again, one of our main rationales for doing that was to leave the teaching of those foundational skills in ELA and math to the classroom teacher, and not having parents needing to focus on that or becoming their own child's teacher at home, but we will cover all of that during school. We did at first explore the 2 full day option that the middle and high school are doing. But when it came down to it, for a 5 or 6 or even 9-year-old to see their teacher on Tuesday and not see them again or have that routine or that contact with them again until the following Monday, we didn't feel was in the best interest of the younger students, and having 4 half-day and in-person contacts was the best for them at that age.
Ms. George, Mr. Wicks, cost about extra cleaning, extra busing, things like that? Oh, hang on, you're on mute.
Sure. There are extra costs associated with this, but trying to balance everything in this new world of COVID, reduced capacity on the buses, reduced capacity in the classrooms. We felt that this was a very good model for our students, so that they get the best educational experience they can during this time.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Mr. Roberts, any cuts to the curriculum, or will specials and extras be offered?
So no, the curriculum will be, again, as I stated earlier, we have, we're moving forward as if Regents exams and AP exams will be taking place. So the curriculum will be as it has in the past. We'll have all of our elective opportunities for our students to engage in, although obviously slightly different. But the curriculum is the same, the standards are the same, and expecting our students to have that same full experience they have, and the variety of experiences that they've had in the past. So our model allows for that, and we're looking forward to providing that to our students come September.
And as Director of Curriculum Instruction, I would say that answer goes for the other 2 buildings as well. I just called on you just to make sure you were paying attention.
Thank you, Mr. Membretti.
Thank you. And along those lines, can you talk about, while the curriculum will be the same, what flexibility is going to be built in administratively or teacher-wise when it comes to standards, work expectations, gradings, those type of things?
I think specific to the curriculum from a core area standpoint, again, as I said, those that will be held accountable to state and national exams at the end of the year, those that curriculum will be the same. The flexibility, as it always does, comes in those courses that don't require a state or national exam. And like I said, in the core area, those students are going to be tuning in for live instruction Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, whether it's in person or through Google Meet. And the elective areas, they'll be in person 2 days a week, and then they'll have group projects, maybe viewing videos, maybe tuning in for some instruction and a variety of different ways of providing the curriculum, but there will be some flexibility in that curriculum because our students won't be tuning in for the elective areas. But the expectations of our students will be the same as it always has been, and as our students proved during the spring of last year, they not only met but exceeded those expectations, and we'll expect that again in the fall.
Excellent. I believe we have answers to this, but principals, correct me if I'm wrong. Will kids or adults be switching rooms? So at Parkdale, it will be the adults that are switching rooms, and at middle school and high school, it'll be the kids that are switching rooms. Okay. I believe this would be a Parkdale question. Will each teacher have their own Google Classroom? And again, the answer is yes to that, which was a change from the spring. I'll be able to begin talking about this next one about initiatives for mental, social, emotional health. Part of what we're doing is I had a meeting last week, and we have another meeting I believe this Wednesday with all of our counselors, psychologists, and social workers. We've also added a new K-8 social worker that's specifically focused not just on how they do their job, but how they do their job in a time of pandemic, in a time of disruption, in a time of civil unrest, in a time of changing models, and what was comfortable and has always been isn't there anymore. So I can tell you that our counselors, our psychologists, our social workers are very concerned about doing this and doing this well, and making sure they're offering support to children, but also to faculty, to aides, to families who need it to help navigate this time on a social, emotional, mental level, as well as the academic level that we're known for. So that is a high priority for us as a district. We have a holistic wellness approach that we've been championing the last few years, and it really, the rubber's meeting the road this year in terms of how serious we take wellness in every facet. Just a question. Yes.
Just a quick reminder about that EAP webinar that families should have got the email about, that the parents can participate in, and that's on August 20th from 12 to 1 o'clock, I believe is one of the sessions. It's about empowering and preparing the parents for that transition into school in the fall. So if you haven't seen that, there should be an email, and you can take a look at that, and hopefully that will help from the parental aspect of how to work with your kids and get your family adjusted for the return to school.
And that was blasted out.
Yeah, blast was just sent this afternoon. Yep, from my office.
And again, general teaching and learning, as of now, Regents classes with Regents exams, state testing, both of those are on as far as we know at this point. And then a follow-up on the requirement for labs. I know it has some to do with 8th grade, but I'll bounce it mostly to the high school. Labs, with kids only being here 2 days a week, are we sure they're going to be able to meet the lab requirements if Regents exams and state tests are on this spring?
So we do have some flexibility in that this year. Our students will still be participating in lab experiences when they're on site with us, but we do have flexibility in that requirement moving forward in regards to students then being eligible to take a Regents exam.
Okay, so we are aware of that. Good. Mr. Brown, I'm going to throw a bit of a hot potato at you, but it was a question that came up many ways in many different formats, and I'm basically going to summarize it as what's going to be different this fall than it was last spring. So how will it look different? Will complete work, will it be work complete, just marked as complete, or will there be grading? At some point in our communication, we talked about, as capabilities allow, technological live streaming, Power School, common streamline expectations for teachers and technology, and also parents' professional development on the use of technology. So kind of a loaded question there, but folks want to know how the fall is going to look different than the spring did.
Sure. Just hold on, get a little feedback. Excuse me. You're off. Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, so it'll look a lot different. Obviously, there will be the in-person, portion of this fall for a vast majority of our students, which we're excited about. But even the students who are working remotely, or the students who are working remotely, on their days in this hybrid model, There's going to be some increased expectations and accountabilities that we are going to have in place. Some of those include, and I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, is the attendance. We are required to take attendance for students working remotely as well. We also have talked about at the middle school level. I can speak a little bit more specifically. You may recall we went away from the use of grades, with the exception for our Regents classes of algebra and earth science. We did go away from the use of grades at the end of last year, and we rated everything as either it met the standard, it did not meet the standard, or it was missing. We are going to go back to a grading model. We do feel the importance of the use of grades. And a lot of these conversations and the decisions are going to be made with a lot of input from the teachers. So we don't have all of the specifics laid out yet for this, but these are the conversations that we're having with our teaching staff, and we're trying to come up with really what makes most sense. So I think you'll see an increase in that synchronous learning, the live streaming, things like that, more of the face-to-face, I think you'll see an increase of as well. And that's kind of where we get to the as capabilities allow. The district has gone out and purchased cameras, microphones, and things that will help us through that process to provide that opportunity for the students who are working remotely. We're hoping they'll be here in the next few weeks. And then obviously they have to be installed, and we're working very hard to train the teachers and have everyone feel comfortable. So are these all going to be up and running perfectly day one, September 10th? We definitely can't promise that, but we can assure you that we're definitely working to do that as quickly as possible. And we wanted to make this as seamless of a transition for the students as possible. In regard to Power School and streamlining, we did recognize, we received feedback last year. Our district had over 600 programs that were used by teachers during that online or remote learning portion. And we have limited that district-wide from about 600 down to approximately 70. And what we've done is we've gained information and from teachers, from students, from families, and we've really mainstreamed what are the essential programs that we need. And obviously there's some more logistics that go into that. It's a little bit deeper than that. But we are really trying to provide teachers the tools they need to teach and be creative and engage students at the same time, not having too many of those programs, which we found some students really struggled with. So a lot of these conversations, like I said, are being had right now, but we are definitely committed to making this fall experience as good as and effective and engaging as we possibly can.
And I know 70 still sounds like a lot, but understand a lot of those are like library-specific databases or very specific classes for our Art Academy or Film Academy or in certain tech labs. So you're going to see a greatly streamlined approach. I think the other thing as Director of Curriculum Instruction I'm proud of is we've done a lot of research on best practice of hybrid learning and remote learning, and we've actually partnered with St. John Fisher College's School of Education, and they're going to come in and give some baseline understandings to our teachers of how to be an effective hybrid or remote or virtual teacher, common ways to build engagement, ways for assessment and engagement, curriculum, lesson planning in that model. So in the spring, we were all kind of thrown into this and we did the best we could. And I think our teachers did an amazing job. That being said, they all acknowledge that we can do better and we should do better. And so they've asked for professional development in that area, but in a streamlined teaching approach and a streamlined technology approach, you should see things start to pay off right there, right away. There's going to be significant improvements in both those areas. I will say, just for sense of perspective, and those of you in the room know this, a number of parents thought that spring was way too heavy and restrictive and too many expectations, and an equal number of parents thought it was way too light and flexible and loosey-goosey. So again, we're trying to thread a needle here that works with a number of families and a number of situations and children in all of those situations. So in a lot of these cases, we're balancing folks who want more with folks who want less and still just trying to do what's best for kids. Speaking of doing what's best for kids, all of our planning always takes into account those who are most vulnerable or have the most needs first, and a number of questions that came around. And what I need is Jerome to maybe jump in, Jerome Polakowicz. A lot of questions regarding special ed, how special ed services, whether they be IEPs, 504s, OT, PT, speech, other classroom accommodations, extended time, separate locations, work in this hybrid model. Will special ed students be offered additional time and opportunities, and what other opportunities, and go from there?
Sure. The answer is yes, all of the above. Certainly, the easiest model is in person, in classroom. All the supports and accommodations of the IEP will be very well followed. It's the subjective area of remote learning and times during the Google Classroom that students may struggle and need extra assistance for that. Each child has been assigned a case manager or will be assigned a case manager. In case management, that child will utilize that teacher's expertise to meet in virtual Google rooms to be able to get some extra added support and service. If the IEP does need to be tweaked or changed as a result of that, we can certainly do that through the CSE process. Students that receive related services such as OT, PT, and speech, we're going to have to finesse this a little bit. We don't want to interrupt the students in class because they are coming only for limited periods of time. So for the related services, we're going to look at opportunities that may fall in Parkdale K-4, the opposite half-day time period, to see if we can plug students in services during those times and provide transportation and or parent transport to make that happen, as well as Wednesdays, which really lend themselves nicely to some extra support time period if need be. The same in the secondary. We're going to spend the first few weeks of school allowing students to normalize the new routine, and then really work to find areas and holes where we can capitalize on those time periods to have students receive those related services schedules. And we will be doing that. It's going to take some time. A number of logistical things are happening to look at the best possible way to handle and address those situations. As far as students in AIS supports, I know that the Academic Intervention Services staff is really looking at the similar model to providing students with the related services, finding areas in their schedules that would allow for those extra added supports. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Jerome. We're now going to dive a little deeper into the school day experience. We have a number of questions regarding what in-person learning will look and feel like, a number of questions regarding what virtual or remote learning will look or feel like, lots of questions on what Wednesday will be, and it was basically the question, what's Wednesday going to be? Questions about the 4 days versus, or 4 half days versus different models. And then I've pulled out health and safety questions from that. So we're going to approach kind of this next slate of questions purely from the teaching and learning standpoint. And then we'll circle back and address it also, many of the same questions from a health and safety standpoint as well. So just so you kind of have a sense of where we're going. So, you know, any of the principals can want to pop in, but the first one is really for in-person learning. You know, how many kids are going to be in a room? What is max class size? How will desks be spaced? Will there be barriers? What about barriers in hallways? How are we going to keep teachers able to connect with kids but distant from kids? What about larger spaces, chorus, band, gym, cafeteria? I know some of that was mentioned in your presentation. Will some learning be outdoors as weather permits? Will windows be opened as weather permits? And also, has consideration gone into teachers wearing masks in terms of students' ability to hear them, to understand them, if they're using a mic system, for young children who are learning how to make letter sounds and the rest, watching how the tongue and the lips, which is part of our instruction. So anyone want to jump in on what the in-person experience will look like? Jess, why don't you start, and then the gentleman can follow up.
Yes, I'd said some of this in the presentation, but we're aiming for no more than 12 kids in a room at a time. That is the amount of kids we can fit into a classroom at Parkdale and keep them 6 feet away from each other. We're going to space our desks 6 feet away from each other. The teachers will have a barrier between them and between the children and where they're sitting. And all of the desks will have these 3-sided barriers that will be Velcroed to the desks. And then again, we'll change them out between the AM and PM. We did order, I believe, face shields for the teachers. So the students can not only see their face and their facial expressions, but can see their lips and their mouth as they're teaching, especially the younger kids, how to form certain letter sounds. And outdoors, I know our teachers are anxious to get outdoors as much as they can. We have a lot of green space at Parkdale. We have a lot of trees for coverage on those really hot days. Teachers have clipboards, so they are planning whenever possible to take their classes outside. I think you'll see on some of the supply lists a towel. Those can be brought outside. Yoga mats, we have some yoga mats, so they'll sit on outside with a clipboard and do work outside as much as possible, as long as the weather continues to cooperate.
You want me to jump in, or?
Yeah, the in-person experience either at the middle school or high school for the kids that'll be here those 2 days.
Right. Very, very similar. They'll have the dust barriers will be on their desk. Masks will be worn. And same as what Ms. Lyons said, there's some plexiglass that is being installed in all of the classrooms near where most of the instruction will take place. So the teacher can utilize that as well. One thing into consideration is if there's multiple teachers in the room, we're looking at how to best do that. We're trying very hardly to follow all of these safety guidelines. We obviously take them very seriously, and at the same time, we're trying to provide the students with a welcoming atmosphere. And we want them to, using the face masks are becoming everywhere you go. It's almost becoming the norm, but we want to make the students feel comfortable. So we're putting a lot of these safety measures in place, to make sure they're safe at all times. In regard to the outside, at the middle school, we don't have very much outside space, but we have been talking, and some teachers may utilize. We do have what they call an outside classroom out back. Teachers always in the past have used those areas and have signed those areas out. So I anticipate that there may be some increase in the usage of these spaces. So it's definitely something that's on the radar. And really what we're looking at now for those larger classes is based on the numbers of students, which we should know by the end of the scheduling process that will take place over the next week. We then need to figure out where to put them and how to balance them. And do we need extra support, aid support, different things like that to help all of these things really come to fruition to make sure that the students are receiving the instruction that they deserve while following all of the safety updates that we have.
And consistent message from the high school. I think the only things that I would add, if you've been in East Aurora High School, the rooms are of varying size. So the max number of students is going to be a little bit different depending on which room you're in. But I'm expecting that to be somewhere in the range of 10 to 12 students. If we cannot fit, as Mr. Brown said, if we cannot fit a class within a specific room because of the social distancing guidelines, we'll move that class to a larger classroom. And I know a number of our teachers are exploring different ways that they can instruct outside. I'm promoting that. And we do have an outdoor classroom that was dedicated from a senior class a number of years ago. And I am sure that that is going to be used far more this year than it has in the past.
Just some of the specifics then. So yes, there will be barriers on the desks. The hallways will have tape with space in the middle to keep in one direction, one-directional stairwells. including at the high school. No, just kidding. There's no stairs at the high school. Large spaces, we talked about chorus, band, gym, certain rules in the cafeteria. I know Mr. Brown spoke about those. And yes, we're going to try and get outside as much as possible. Regarding teachers wearing masks when teaching, there are options of shields, and a lot of this is going to be trial and error. A lot of this is going to be finding out what works. Always safety, that's not the trial and error piece, but how we can meet those mandates in a way that it both keeps kids safe and is educationally effective. Mr. Russ, if you want to jump in, you often talk about kind of the layers of protection, and maybe just that approach so folks understand why we have these multiple layers built in.
Sure. I also received a question about the filtration within the HVAC system within the school, and so we're continuing to get guidance from the Department of Health along with our BOCES, how we can adapt and use different filters to provide the best filtration possible. But one thing that we are doing is we're getting new information every single day. So we're trying to take a multi-step or layered approach where we're going to be using masks, we're going to be social distancing, we're using barriers, we're using the proper cleaning procedures, all of that together. When we met with Dr. Gail Bernstein from the Department of Health, she said that's the best way to maximize the safety of our sites. And so that is, as Mr. Mamberti said, our first and foremost is creating safe space for our students and our staff, and that comes through an approach that I would say is still changing because we're getting continuous guidance, ongoing guidance from, like I said, various sources, and so we're listening to that and then trying to adapt it, as that information becomes available. So it certainly is right now. It continues to be a work in progress, but we are comfortable when our staff returns on September 1st and the students return on September 10th that we will be prepared at that time.
Great, thank you. We're now going to switch over to the virtual or remote portion of this. The first series of questions is going to be regarding children who are participating both in the half and half model. And then there are some questions about the parents having the right to choose complete virtual and what that would look like for their children. So we'll save that for the second part of this. But just some of the questions, some of them I can answer kind of quickly, and the rest I'll turn it over to the principals. What will be our base platform for virtual and remote learning? Google will be the platform, both Google Classroom and Google Meet. We are a Google district with great investments in that area, so Google is kind of our baseline foundation. Questions about what will instruction, interaction, expectations look like during virtual days? How and where can students go for help? Will there be flexibility on deadlines or consequences when students can't connect with a kid because it's on one of their virtual days? How long do you project kids are going to be in front of a screen on their virtual days? How much work should they or will they be given? Obviously, and, it'll change as things go, but just in general. Ms. Lyons, a number of questions about remote kindergarten and what exactly that would entail. Is a kindergartner expected to be in front of a screen all morning or afternoon, as the case may be? What is the kind of philosophical balance between synchronous, which means you're watching it live as it's happening, and asynchronous, which means it happens at one time and you can watch it in a recorded or saved function later? If there are synchronous learnings, but there are legitimate reasons, whether illness or childcare or things like that, will exceptions be made on some synchronous expectations? Can in-person students go remote? So people who choose to come in and for whatever reason it's not working and they want to go remote for the remainder of the first semester. And then how do you do virtual specials in classes that are hands-on or project-based, such as art or PE? So why don't we answer those questions first in the mindset of the kids who will be participating both in person and virtual, and then we'll do a separate set of questions on the kids that will remain completely virtual while everyone else is hybrid. So that's not when we're all remote, but there's that section. So why don't we start? I know kindergarten was specifically singled out by a number of folks. Talk about virtual kindergarten. Any of those other questions you want to answer, Jess, and then the gentleman can jump in.
Yes, so if you, on my reopening plan, I think it's the third or fourth slide, there are some sample schedules. I see there's several people viewing it right now, but if you go there, You'll see sample schedules for a kindergarten student if they were at school in the morning, and then a different one if they were at school in the afternoon. So the remote half of the day for a kindergarten student will include any supplemental or reinforcement activities. So because they are in school 4 days a week, the teacher will be sending reinforcement activities home as paper copies. In addition, they may also have some Google Classroom, but it will not be a lot of screen time for the younger kids on the virtual half of the day. Again, I said the teacher will send home things for them to work on, activities for them to work on with their parents' help. They'll also have virtual specials that will be live if they're able to log on, and they will be grade level specific. So whatever activities, especially area teachers are planning, they will be able to do at home.
Fines, if I could just interject there. If students choosing remote only models are students with related services, once we get the related service schedules established, we will let you know the time that you can bring your child in for those related services at Parkdale.
Thank you. And I think I answered the kindergarten one. How long will they be in front of a screen? How much work? We, as Ms. Mombretti had said, I heard from a variety of parents in the spring, and it was a pretty much a half and half balance between we were giving too much work or we weren't giving enough work. So we are going to supply what we feel is the amount of work a child should be doing. If your family would like more work, you have to just let us know. If it's too much, also let us know, and we'll work together to come up with ways to lessen the workload for the child at home. With balance between synchronous and asynchronous, as I said, the remote part of the day and on Wednesdays, we'll have a mix between synchronous and asynchronous learning. We realize that the little children, the younger children will be at daycares and might not have access to a Chromebook during the remote half of the day and on Wednesdays. So we will be providing asynchronous lessons and specials for those younger students that cannot access those during those times. Remote specials and classes. For art, we do have a separate art supply list that was sent out a couple of weeks ago. We are asking that parents still purchase those and keep them in a baggie at home. Miss White will be designing projects, art projects, using those materials in that bag. She will also have the opportunity to send some extra stuff home with certain grade levels because the students will be there 4 days a week should her activities change. And I think I answered the hybrid questions from an elementary standpoint.
So then from the middle and high school standpoint, I think the base understanding is, it's 4 to 5 days of new curriculum per week. So half the classes in front of you, half the classes at home. On the flip day, the other half is in front of you, the other half's at home. But can you just talk about, what that expectation is for kids in terms of what to sign in, when to sign in, what the expectations are in terms of the standards, but also what the flexibilities are in terms of reality and how we're going to kind of thread that needle.
So at the high school, again, as I mentioned before, it'll be an expectation when the students are home that they are logging in and attending their core area classes, which will be through Google Meet. Their non-core or elective areas during the time when they're at home, they'll be doing a number of different things that the teachers will have set the stage for when the students are in front of them on the 2 days that they're in session. So what might that look like? Completing assignments, group projects are very important option and productive option. Projects, individual projects, maybe watching videos to enhance the instruction. Those are all things that students will be doing for their non-core areas. So again, when they're logging in on those days, it's going to be 4 40-minute sessions That's your typical core area commitment of sitting in front of the computer, and then there's flexibility with the other assignments to do when the student has the time and energy. One question I just wanted to touch on: where will students go for help? There's going to be structured office hours for our teachers. So students who have questions or need some extra support, there'll be structured office hours for those students to touch base with their teacher. Mr. Mambretti, anything else?
I'll add a few comments about the middle school.
Please.
As in general, the middle school is kind of in the middle of those two things. So, and what I mean by that is we're definitely following more of that high school model. Yes, students will, when they're doing the remote learning of the hybrid model at home, we will ask that they log into their core classes. Now, what I can tell you is there definitely will be some synchronous learning taking place where there may be live streaming and things like that. But in certain classes, it might look a little different. Some teachers are flirting with the option of flipping a classroom where some of the instruction would be done more on videos or pre-recorded things. And those are all, determinations that our teaching staff is working very hard on. What we are definitely committed to is having grade level consistency, having clear expectations, having consistent expectations. How does a student turn something in? We want that to be the same across the board. So I can tell you that at the middle school, it'll definitely follow that model that the high school will have in place. But there may be a little bit more flexibility built in there. But these are specific expectations and plans that the teachers and I and the support staff, we're working very hard on right now. So we may not have 100% of these expectations dialed out, but they're definitely conversations we have, and we really want to make sure that we have a well thought out plan. And then we'll make sure to communicate that to you. And also, like Mr. Roberts said, we do intend on having open office hours for the teachers. Maybe, I don't know how many times per week, but those are some things that we're looking into, where the teachers will be available for students to ask questions and interact with.
And along that note, the possibility of streaming non-core subjects or those teachers putting up videos to watch asynchronously is definitely a possibility. I think one of the other big questions regarding interaction, parents need to know that for the time where your child's at home, they would not be watching, as all of you are now, out there in TV land in a one-way session, but you'd be asking live in a Google Meet as if we, the administrators, are here. So with a Chromebook in front of them, the teacher will be able to have children virtually raise their hand, ask questions, type in a live chat. So the teacher will truly be teaching the full class at the same time. It's just half will be at home or somewhere else, and half will be in front of them, and then flip-flop. But it's not 2 days of kind of watching educational TV and then 2 days of watching a teacher, but you'll be interacting with teachers all 4 days, or at least have the ability to. That's the vision for that live streaming part of that. It's not just one way. So I think this is a great transition question, and what it's going to say is, can in-person students, so those that are do the 2 days in, 2 days out model, or the half day, go remote if not comfortable, or for it's just not working for them and their situation. I think I would start by saying, we need to know what your initial plan is. And then if there is a desire that it's not working, reach out to your building principal, that we commit to working with you in a win-win. For a number of reasons, you can choose to stay home. I would hope that would be a two-way dialogue, and then come back at the semester break. If again, you want to come back, or your child's not starting with us but is then going to come back. But that would be a possibility, but it would be a conversation you'd have with your principal. But I know a lot of folks were waiting for these meetings to decide what they want to do. If you are not going to send your child for the first semester, please reach out to your principal right away. It has a major impact on staffing, scheduling, balancing, those type of things. And then again, once you get into the year, if it's not working for you, your principal will work with you. For those kids that are going to stay home, while we are in a hybrid model, so this is different than if we go totally remote, but if the district is in a hybrid model, but some parents choose to stay home, we're going to call that the all virtual model. So the all virtual model during hybrid learning, what's that going to look like? What can I expect? Will those teachers be, will those students be assigned a teacher in a cohort, in a class? Will they be blended in with their peers who are here within the building, or are they going to be isolated in their own cohort with their own teacher and off to the side? And when you go to the all virtual model, is it going to be equal opportunities or equal experiences, and how we kind of speak about that? So if we can speak about the kids who will not be joining us for the first semester, assuming we remain in a hybrid model. Jess, you want to start?
Sure. So if your child is at Parkdale, I did send out a survey last week, and I sent a reminder this morning. We do need an idea of how many students are choosing the all virtual option. So two things could happen here, and I will know more on Wednesday or Thursday of this week. But if we have enough students at any given grade level that choose the all virtual model, so I'm looking for about, if I get 12 at a certain grade level, I will be able to take all 12 of those students and assign them the same teacher for half of the day. So if they were going to be assigned to a certain teacher for the afternoon session, in the morning, they would follow their grade level schedule for the virtual part of the day. And then in the afternoon, if that teacher would be assigned to that grade level of students, and they would work with the families for exactly what that looks like. Would it be 2.5 hours of the kids on the screen with the teacher and them talking at the student? Probably not, but it'd be a combination of synchronous teaching, some practice for both math and ELA, which would be what the students would be receiving in the classroom. If there's not enough students at a certain grade level to quote, free up a teacher for half of a day to focus on the all virtual, we are exploring having the students live stream, and they will also be assigned a teacher. It might not be the same teacher, but to live stream into that classroom that they are part of for the half of the day that they are assigned when their classmates are in there, and seeing their classmates, learning from their teacher a little bit that way, and with a combination of videos provided by the teacher for them to watch on their virtual academic part of the day, I guess you could say. Again, I'll know more later this week. I know some families were wondering what it would be before they chose. If you can fill out that form to the best of your ability, and then when I do know more, if you'd like to switch, I'm hoping we can accommodate those families based on what that will actually look like. I think that's it.
Sure.
And then at the middle school or high school, the kids that remain all virtual while we're in a hybrid model?
So at the middle school, the way we're envisioning this at this point is that those students would essentially follow the red schedule on Monday and Tuesday, meaning that they are in the remote learning portion of the hybrid model on Monday and Tuesday. All students then follow the same schedule on Wednesdays, and then they would follow the blue schedule on Thursday and Friday. So they would follow the remote portion of the hybrid model, that where they would receive the combination of the synchronous and asynchronous learning. We do anticipate that there would maybe more questions for these students in open office hours. These are some of the details that we're still looking at based on our numbers. At this point, we do not have a very large, significant number whose parents have made this decision at this point. And like Mr. Mambretti said, for us, the sooner we know this information, we were going to send a blast out tomorrow to ask people by the end of this week at the latest. It does impact how we do some of the scheduling, just if we have that idea, prior to finalizing some of the scheduling, we appreciate that. At the same time, if at any time, like it was stated earlier, your child does come back to school and your circumstances change, we may make adjustments. I'm sorry, we have a little audio thing. So as I was saying, if at any time your circumstances change at home, or your child doesn't feel comfortable here or anything like that, we ask that you include us in that dialogue. We have a great support staff that is here to help you. But if you need to then go to a virtual experience at that point, we will certainly help you through that and accommodate that for you. Mr. Roberts, anything to add?
Similar answer to the middle school. Again, we'll send out a reminder tomorrow. We'd like to know all of the students who are going to take that virtual approach by the end of the week. Right now, we have very few students that are doing that. Those that are, again, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, will be tuning in live for their core areas: English, social studies, math, and science. And then all other courses will be a combination of online assignments, group work, projects, and videos to support the instruction. And as Mr. Brown said, it's just very important that we get that information sooner rather than later so we can plan accordingly. And we'll send out a reminder tomorrow.
And I think the big thing to emphasize, because I think there was a lot of confusions in the question I had, knowing that you'd have 4 days of interactive online as opposed to 4 days of watching TV, that there would be this sense of these ongoing Google Meets back and forth. The big question that came in, and really has very few sub-bullets because everyone just asked the same question, is Wednesday. What's it going to look like for kids? What can I expect from my children's teachers? So maybe we'll go in reverse order this time, start with Mr. Roberts, Mr. Brown, and then Ms. Lyons on what you envision for the Wednesday experience.
We've received in person. I'm looking at Wednesdays being a very important time for supports for students. Students reaching out to their teachers, teachers reaching out to students and parents, and bridging that gap that naturally comes when some of our students aren't on site every single day. I'd also like to use that time for our clubs and student activities to meet. The way that our schedule is set up, at least to start the year, doesn't allow for that to take place as it would normally in, if you're familiar with a high school, during activity period, because there will be no activity period. So we're going to need time to get those groups together, because we know that that is such an important part of their school experience. So I see Wednesdays being an opportunity for that to take place as well. Also, we and forgive me if we've said this, but we're going to be using Wednesday across the district of all of our buildings, because we won't have any students on site as we transition from the blue group to the red group, or red group to blue group. That day is a day that we're going to be using to do the deep cleaning that I mentioned. I also want to use that day as a day for our teachers to receive professional development, to enhance what they're doing in the classroom and in their virtual instruction. So it's going to be an important day that will support the instruction on the during this hybrid approach.
I would just, for the middle school, I'm almost going to identically say the same thing that Mr. Roberts just said. All of those same conversations they're having in regard to Wednesdays. One thing I wanted to clarify earlier, Mr. Roberts was talking about the core subjects that the high school students would sign into every day when they were learning remotely. At the middle school level, we actually have 5 core subjects. So in 5th and 6th grade, we have ELA, reading, and then math, social studies, and science. In 7th and 8th grade, we have English and LOT, which is their foreign language of Spanish or Latin, and then math, social studies, and science. So those 5 are considered the core. I don't know exactly where this is going to go in regard to, even if we are doing synchronous learning, will it be for the full 40-minute lesson or 40-minute period, or will it be for a portion of the period and then there'll be follow-up activities? Those are a lot of the things that the teachers are working hard on and meeting on. But I just wanted to back up a little bit to make sure there were no misconceptions about that at the middle school level. But in regard to Wednesday, I would just second everything that Mr. Roberts said.
And the only thing, as I was looking at my cheat sheet, that I forgot to mention was at the high school level, sorry, Mr. Manbretti, the importance the important role that the counseling center plays, not only in a support system for our students, but also as we prepare our students for college and careers. And because of the limited movement that we're going to have within the school and the hybrid approach that we have, we are going to use Wednesdays from a counseling center standpoint to connect individually with students as they prepare for college and careers. So that was one piece. Forgive me, Mr. Rambretti, for forgetting.
No problem. Ms. Lyons, you want to talk about Wednesdays over at Parkdale?
I'm going to share my screen really quick. I keep referring to these sample schedules, but this is a sample schedule for a Wednesday for any student. It doesn't matter the grade level. As we had all said earlier, we're still going to follow our 6-day cycle. So for example, our letter days, A through F. So for example, our first Wednesday in school will be September 16th, which will be an E day. So on that first Wednesday at home, students would go to their individual schedules up here. So this is a grade 4, if you're coming to school in the afternoon schedule. And on an E day, the child would have music. So on a Wednesday, we're all going to start our mornings with some sort of Google, a full classroom meet or a combination of a full classroom meet and some smaller group classroom meets with some get to know you activities. Because as it was mentioned earlier, the 10 kids in the morning session are never going to meet or see the 11 kids in the afternoon session. So teachers are going to spend Wednesday mornings getting the classes together to meet and interact in full groups and small groups. Then from 10:45 to 11:15, if you're a 4th grade afternoon or a 4th grade student in general, you would have music. So they would go to their music Google Classroom for that day and complete the activity from that Mrs. Levoy would have assigned. And then they'll have another half an hour to complete any classwork. That time slot and the one at the end of the day will be a combination of whatever the teacher sent home paperwork-wise on Tuesdays and assignments or activities posted on Google Classroom. Then that 1 to 1:30 time slot is for AIS speech extra services. There would also be Google Classroom activities posted if they do receive services. And if they do not, there will be enrichment activities posted on the Google Classroom that the child can work on. And then that middle of the day to have lunch and take a little rest break and play a little. We are trying to be conscious that some kids will not be able to access a computer on a Wednesday due to childcare. And that is okay. We're trying to work out some ideas around that. A lot of this doesn't have to be done at those exact times. And we can be flexible with when they are completed. And I think I answered the questions.
Thanks, Jess. We have just a couple other student experience questions that really didn't fit into any of the above categories. So I'll just kind of shout them out quick. We'll do a little bit of a lightning round. Then we're going to move into the health and safety and building use questions, and then some odds and ends. And hopefully we'll be able to end pretty close to when we said we were going to. Will the blue and red or the AM, PM be the regular rotation, or will there be changes? Long story short, as it comes to childcare, can we plan for it? Will red and blue move if there's a holiday within the week? Things like that. So, Mr. Brown, Mr. Roberts, Ms. Lyons.
We at the middle school and I believe high school level, we are going to just keep it consistent. We're still hoping that we have 100% of our students here at some point, this year. But as of right now, our blue groups will remain in person Monday, Tuesday, no matter what the holiday schedule looks like. And our red group will come in person Thursday and Friday.
The only thing I want to add to that is, and that is our plan to maintain those groups for as long as the hybrid is in effect. And also, I have received some requests for students that want to switch from one group to the other group.
That's actually the next question. So good job.
Hey,
go ahead, do it.
And I didn't even use my cheat sheet.
There you go.
And that's very, very difficult to accommodate because when we do that, the equal separation or division of the classes starts to sway and create a situation where we have a blue group that has too many students in a classroom and a red group that has less students in a classroom. When we talk about social distancing, it's really going to come down to an exact number. And the groups need to be even in order for that to happen. So it's going to be very difficult to accommodate requests to move groups from red to blue at the high school level. And anything else, Mr. Manfredi?
Well, before Jessica stops in to talk about Parkdale, really going to echo that at the middle school, we've started to receive some requests, and what we need to do is really, hopefully, like I said, by the end of the week, we'll have our student schedules together, and then we'll be able to really look at those numbers and see where we're at. So I know that if it's something to do with childcare, and I've responded to those parents, we're definitely going to look and try to work, with you the best we can. But there are a lot of factors that go into this, and there's a lot of limitations that go into this once you start that scheduling process. So for anyone who did reach out to me, I know I responded to an email. If I haven't yet, that means I haven't read it yet. But it's certainly not an easy task. But especially if it's childcare wise at that 5th and 6th grade level, especially, we are doing everything we can to help in that process.
And on Parkdale survey, you can request the opposite session that your child would be assigned to for extenuating circumstances, which do include childcare or transportation. So I'm not going to make any guarantees. I'm going to try really, really hard to accommodate all of those. Right now, there's an influx of requests for people to switch from PM to AM. So if that balances out with AM to PM, and I have to take into consideration how many students are leaving Parkdale or do opt for 100% virtual. So once I have all those survey results in later this week, I can take a look at the big picture and try to rebalance the classes in order to accommodate all of the families.
I will say that, over 2/3 of our questions and 2/3 of our time have to do with the student's experience in teaching and learning. And the remaining third has to do with health and safety. And we have just a little bit of time left for that. But I will say we're not giving it short shift. The questions were balanced over this time. But before we get there, just has there, maybe Mr. Russ, some considerations? If enough children opt out and go complete virtual, is there the possibility that then certain parents can opt in for 4 days of instruction? And how would that process work? Is the district providing any help with or for daycare, whether they be resources or financial? And has the district considered the economic burden we're placing on parents by going with a hybrid or a half-day model?
Can I have the first question again?
Sure. The question is, if enough children opt out, virtual, they'll spots open up. Sorry, I was on mute. Okay, sorry. If enough parents opt out, will other parents be able to opt in for 4 days of instruction? Is there any help with or for daycare, either resources or financial?
Can I just have one question at a time? Yeah, let me just
I'm sorry. Yep.
Yeah. So, if we have enough parents to opt out and decide that they're going to more than likely be using that staff to create a virtual model. So it would be very difficult to allow the calculation to allow students to attend 4 days I would say, highly unlikely because the students who are in the virtual setting are still requiring instruction. So there may be some exceptions for students who have additional needs. And we've talked about that before, but I think for the general population, at least at this time, we would stick with the 2 days per week. Now, they're going to come 4 days per week at the elementary level, but at the high school and the middle school level, we just don't see that happening. But I'll be honest, we're pretty much open to anything, and if those numbers work in that direction, we would consider it, but I think it's just highly unlikely.
Okay, and then the other one was regarding resources for daycare, whether opportunities or financial or the burden that this model is placing on students,
Sure.
parents, families.
We have met with the Boys and Girls Club, Duck Duck Goose, and the Community Nursery, all who offer childcare programs within our community. They have made as many spaces available. I know that that most of those were filled. I think especially at the Boys and Girls Club, and I'm going to check with the other two as well, just to see that if additional spaces have been made available, and we will notify parents of that. There wouldn't be any financial support from the district for those services, but we are more than willing to help with the arrangement process. We've also been working with the Erie County Child Care Network resource, which is available also on our website, and they have a really broad scope of practitioners that they work with, and they are more than willing to help parents find proper child care as well.
Great. And our next pivot then goes into health and safety and building use, and then again followed by odds and ends. So we are kind of circling the airport here. If you have a question about teaching and learning that hasn't been answered yet, please do email it into reopen@eak12.org. And the first stuff is a little more philosophical. These are a little more question and answer. So maybe if we can not go lightning round, but kind of answer these questions. But maybe Mr. Russ, if you first want to talk about our commitment, ongoing commitment to health and safety, not just physical, but mental, emotional, social.
Sure. There's a number of questions under the health and safety of our facilities and the conditions for our students and staff that we'll be addressing in just a moment. But another piece that we haven't seen here is the issues related to the mental health and well-being of our students and staff. We've over the last 2 years, we hired an additional social worker last year. We just are in the process of hiring an additional social worker for this school year. They'll be working very closely with the principals and in regard to monitoring our students and our staff, and also providing support services within the district, and also connecting families with resources outside of the district. This does not only have an impact on just our students, but also on the families. And I want to thank all of our counselors, our school psychologists, and our social worker for the great work that they've done reaching out to students on a regular basis and providing them with supports that are very straightforward, because as this continues to progress, it makes it harder and harder for us to be away from each other. We're hoping that at the middle school and high school, the 2 days a week will certainly help to reconnect us, and the 4-day model, the 4 half-day model at Parkdale. One of the major reasons, as Ms. Lyons said earlier, the reason we chose it is to get them in here on a consistent basis, have 2.5 solid hours of connection and instruction with their teacher. All that helps to support the mental health and well-being of our students. But if a family is struggling in any way, please do not hesitate to contact us. Typically, it's easiest to contact the building principal, and they can connect you with the proper support.
And like I mentioned, about 2/3 to 3/4 of the question more had to do with teaching and learning, and there is a remaining share that has to do with health and safety, but it is by far the smallest. So hopefully that means you trust us to do what's right and good for your children, but there are some questions that remain. So let's try and do, again, a little bit of a lightning round, but obviously give these questions their due. Will kids be required to wear masks all day? What about mask breaks? Can they wear masks while at their desk, while behind a barrier? Is school providing masks? Will home be providing masks? Who wants to talk about masks? Go ahead, Jess.
Okay, I'll just go first. We are adding a mask to the supply list for the kids, but we will also have masks at school for those that forget theirs on any given day. We will have mask breaks for the younger students. As I said earlier, they're only there for 2.5 hours a day. That was one of the reasonings behind us choosing the half-day model. But when they are at their desks 6 feet away from their closest classmate, with their 3-sided barrier and facing forward, they will be able to take mask breaks, as well as when the teachers bring the class outside for outdoor instruction, they will be able to have mask breaks then.
Similar at the middle and high school? And not just will we have masks and extra PPE if they get lost, forgotten, soiled. Each bus will have a box of masks too. So from the moment the kid gets on the bus, we'll be able to provide a blue, those paper surgical mask types. What accommodations have been made for entrance and exit procedures and other kind of mass clumpings of people? How kids get off buses? How kids dismiss at the end of the day? Other areas where large people or large groups of people congregate.
I think we answered all of those things earlier when we went over the PowerPoints, but really we're just creating more entrances and exits and more locations for the students to go.
And the only thing that maybe we forgot to mention, and forgive me if we did, was at least at the high school, and I believe at the other schools as well, we'll be releasing those buses when they arrive on more of a staggered approach. So not all the students will come running off of the buses at one time. It'll be, at least at the high school, one per location. So it'll be more of a thoughtful entrance to the school building.
And even with car drop-offs, I know that there was a question regarding what are the rules around carpooling, picking up other people's children to take some pressure off the buses. So we'll have to give guidance on that as well. Questions regarding temperature checks. What is the requirement for parents? What is going to be happening in the schools? Who wants to kind of talk about temperature taking? Mr. Russ?
Yes, we're going to ask parents to do temperature checks at home. We are also going to set up a process when students arrive at school. We are still working on the details of that, but we would like to have a double check in place just to ensure that our students are safe coming to school.
Great. I kind of put this under health and safety again because it alludes more to the mental health and safety, but opportunities for orientations, safety protocols, comfort building, chance to meet counselors, a number of requests for kind of a what to expect video type thing. So the principals, I know you alluded to kind of modified orientations, but those types of things are in the works at all three levels. Okay, and that'll be building level communication. Great. What are we going to do with kids who don't wear masks or won't wear masks or participate in other less than safe behaviors? Some of this has to do with them choosing not to do it for whatever reason, in addition to kids that for whatever reason, due to age or disability, are not making the safest choices possible, but obviously not by any conscious or malicious choice. Kind of what's our approach to keep everyone safe when it comes to these things?
There we go.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go first. All students are wearing a mask at the middle school. And obviously if there's health things, and we're going to work with you, and we'll find a best case solution for your child. But our expectation is that all faculty, staff members, all students wear masks at all times, except for when they're provided with a mask break or eating lunch, and we'll go through all of that with the students. But ultimately, we are taking the seriousness or the safety very seriously, and it's not only the safety of our students, it's the safety of our faculty, of our staff, of my kids, of our parents and grandparents. We're really all in this together, and so we're really going to focus on that and make sure that the students and faculty and staff, as well as ourselves, all follow all of those protocols at all times.
Same at the high school. Everyone in the building is going to wear a mask. Yes, we'll have those structured breaks. But other than the structured breaks, masks will be worn.
Great.
Can I just add one comment there? Those the requirements for masks are set for us too by the Department of Health. So again, that guidance is what's leading a lot of our decision making. The need for wearing of masks, social distancing, those are two critical components in how we're able to open school and how many students are allowed back. So that will continue to be the guiding force behind the district's decisions, along with the executive orders from the governor's office.
All right. Next question. Can we talk about the cleaning between the AM and PM sessions? The cleaning at the end of each day, the cleaning on Wednesdays. Who's going to clean? How often is it going to clean? Where do students go when in between periods in the classrooms are being cleaned?
Well, we're going to be cleaning. Everybody's going to be cleaning. It's going to be partly everybody's responsibility, and disinfecting. We're going to be cleaning in teams of people, and afterwards, when the cleaning is done, we're going to be disinfecting with the electrostatic sprayers. Where the students go in between, that's Matt Brown question.
Sure. Yeah. You know, when we're cleaning between the periods, that's one of the plans I would say that we're working on very diligently right now. We're trying to come up with the best way this is going to happen, but we do recognize that it may take more than the 4-minute passing period, you know, for them to clean. And what our anticipation at this point is that we will have locations set up around the perimeter of the classroom, where when the students enter, they will go to that location first. You know, they'll all be 6 feet apart. And then once the room is ready for instruction, the students will then go to their seats. You know, there's some procedural things that we're still figuring out, but we're very confident that our goal here is, number one, safety, and number two, to maximize the time of instruction. We're hoping that it doesn't have too much of an impact. Is it possible that we extend the 4 minutes between periods and do have to take some of that time away from the instructional period? That's possible. These are all the tests and all of the things that we're going through right now to see exactly what that's going to look like.
And a number of questions were regarding, obviously, the deep clean on Wednesday separates the red group and the blue group, but there are special protocols in place between the AM and PM group at Parkdale to keep those rooms safe, correct?
Yes. And again, to go back to the cleaning in between classes, first of all, this is something we're going to practice. Again, we're in the process of setting this up, removing desks from classrooms, so we have our limited number of students, and the barriers are going to be on the desk. And this is something we're going to work on prior to the students coming back. As far as the deep cleaning in between on a Wednesday, this is just going to be just a more extensive cleaning, but more of the same. The coronavirus, you know, on plastic or on stainless steel, you know, it lasts up to 3 days, but after the first day, 90% of it is dead. After 2 days, 99% of it's dead. And but we are going to continue to do it again, disinfecting as opposed to sanitizing, which is something that people have talked about. Again, we want to kill the virus. The biggest challenge is going to be to do this in the shorter terms, between morning and afternoon kindergarten, or I should say morning and afternoon Parkdale, and then also in between the change of classes at the high school and the middle school. And again, something we're really developing that plan, fine-tuning it right now, and it's going to it's going to require some tweaking as we go forward.
And the big part of that is we're actually trying this out. We're giving people 4 minutes to clean a room, figuring out what the best strategy is, the hour and a half to clean a room between the sessions at Parkdale. So again, we're doing a lot of trial and error now so that we get it right by the time your kids return.
Yeah, can I just add that, again, I'd just like to emphasize that everything that we're doing is in accordance and in direction with the Department of Health and the CDC, the products that we're using for disinfecting and killing the disease are provided for us, at least a choice of what we can use, and that's what we are going to use in terms of treating the classrooms, and we are confident that everything will be disinfected accordingly, because again, the safety of our students is our top priority.
Matt Leibrock, I'm going to bounce this one to you because I know you are our liaison with our nurses and also that meeting with Dr. Bernstein. But can you talk about what happens if, and I loved your analogy last time we did this, if someone tests positive or is suspected of testing positive, whether it be a teacher or a student, and how you've been working with the nurses to determine or what I'm going to call a routine illness, a cold, a flu versus COVID, and the protocol you follow. So let's first say that somebody tested or is expected of testing. Where do we go and what do we do?
So we had a great meeting with Gail Bernstein about a week ago in regards to if we do have a positive confirmed case within our district. And if that does happen, the analogy that you reference is we're like the local police department that identify that there's a positive case then that's a student bringing a note from a doctor, or we get notified from the Department of Health that somebody has gotten tested somewhere. We're not doing the testing here. That's something that would be done by a medical physician or any of the testing sites that the county has set up. And once we find out that we do have a positive case, then the county is kind of like when the local police have a crime scene and the FBI come in and they take over the entire situation. That's what would happen here. The county health department is going to come in with their tracing team, and they are going to really take the lead on everything, and we will be there to assist them however we would need to, but they're the ones that are going to make the decisions and contact those who need to be contacted in the event of any close contact.
And along those notes, you've been working with our district physician and our district nurses. There's kind of a if this, then that flow chart when it comes to symptoms, who should stay home, who should participate in remote learning. And some of those are, I believe, on our website already under the contact tracing section of our website. And I know you're in consultation with the doctors and nurses about how do we know if it's I don't want to say just a fever, but just a fever versus COVID. You have those protocols in place.
Sure. Yeah, our nurses have been asking a lot of really good questions and getting a lot of really good answers since the early summer. And we've been working closely with our school physician in order to get proper guidance. And also along with the CDC guidelines and the Department of Health, we've used a lot of their resources to try to figure out what is going to be our best approach in the event that we have to deal with any of this. And you're right, this really good question is that, seasonal allergies, or is it just the flu? Is it just a cold? And obviously there's a lot of similar symptoms. So we're going to deal with that on a case-by-case basis. If that does come up, it might require some additional paperwork from a doctor just identifying that, so-and-so does have seasonal allergies, or, we're not asking for that all up front, but if we find that there's a situation where we might identify multiple symptoms, then we'll work with each of the individual families and our nurses and our school doctor to come up with what our best plan is to make sure that we're keeping our kids safe here at school, but also making sure that we're not going too far overboard and just calling everything COVID, because we know that it's not going to be.
And one of the suggestions was creating a err on the side of caution, keep your child home if they have these symptoms type thing, and pushing that out to parents. So let's make sure we look at that. I know we've come to the end of our time, but we do have some more questions, and I think we can get through them in about the next 10 minutes. So those of you that have to go, thank you for joining us. Those of you that want to stick with us, we're gonna try and move just a little bit quicker, just to show you the breadth of the community that we're dealing with here. Two back-to-back questions. One, wanting to know why we aren't testing all students before they return to school, and the other one asking for reassurance that we will not be doing medical tests on children in our care. So what we're doing is basically we are following the guidance of the county health department, and I think Matt's analogy was very, very clear there. It's kind of like a criminal minds analogy where they swoop in and they're going to tell us what to do. We are educational experts. We are not medical experts, but we have hotlines and we call them with questions big or small on what to do. But there is not a testing. We are not a testing site. We are not testing students here other than temperature scans and possible questionnaires of travel, things like that. But we would work with you and the parents on that. For children who are placed on quarantine or preventative quarantine, would it just assume that they then move to the all virtual model and are expected to do remote learning on all 4/5 days if on a medical quarantine? Yes. Okay. All right. Questions on building use, ventilation. I know through the generosity of the community support, I know our buildings are in really good shape in terms of ventilation. I know we've actually our filters are good, and we've actually ordered better ones. Doug, can you talk just a little bit about both ventilation and then also about bathroom cleaning, especially group bathrooms?
Sure. Right now we are again we've changed our filters. All our filters that we have, because it's done seasonally, and to MERV 8 again, which is was the guidance in the past. Again, the MERV 13 filters are ordered, and we will be changing them as they become available. Bathroom cleaning. Right now, we're cleaning bathrooms 4 times a day, 3 during the day, and once after school. Again, we're going to disinfect the restrooms on a schedule when school starts, as much as necessary or possible, and or as possible or necessary if something should arise.
And that schedule with approximate times will be posted on the doors, so folks will know.
Yeah, that's correct. That's what we have now. Yes.
Yep. Awesome. All right. I have.
Mark,
Go ahead,
excuse
please.
me. Yeah. Here's how this changes. I just received something from our BOCES about the MERV system may not be what we're looking for, or may not be compatible with the systems that are designed in schools. So those are the types of things we deal with on a daily basis. As I'm sitting here, the message just came in. And so those are the things that we are adjusting to day to day, and so that's the challenge of what we face. So we take the information we have and we make the best decisions possible. Unfortunately, that information is changing very rapidly, and that causes us to then change our minds as well. So again, we appreciate everyone's patience. I think is really important, but just know that the education and well-being of your children is of the utmost importance, and it is our top priority. And so as we get additional information, we will kind of bob and weave to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to make it safe and an appropriate place for your children before we return on September 10th.
Great. And then I just have some really things that didn't fit in any other category, so we'll kind of really lightning round these because folks have been very patient with this meeting so far. Bill, impact on the relationship and coordination between the high school and Ormsby, the kids that go over to Ormsby.
So fortunately, Ormsby is following a similar hybrid approach as East Aurora is, as well as the vast majority, if not, I believe, all of the schools that send students to the Ormsby Center. So if a student is signed up for Ormsby, they will attend Ormsby in person on the days that they're in person with us, and they will be virtual on the days that they were virtual with us. That is the one thing with fine-tuning the separation of students at Ormsby to make sure that they have 50% of their students for each of their programs in their blue group and their red group, if you're going to use our two groups. So there may be some splitting of those students that doesn't fit our blue and red to match their groups, because they are bringing students in from 8+ school districts. We may have to be flexible there. That's the only thing that they've asked for, but in the grand scheme of things, students will still be able to participate in their Ormsby programs.
Great. I know we touched on this, but it was a specific question that came up multiple times. School supplies, revised list. When are we getting our student schedules, classes, things like that, especially if there's going to be an expectation that we tune in online, needing to know what times and periods we need to do that. Matt, Bill?
Yeah, we'll get those as soon as possible. We're looking at hopefully having everything figured out by the end of next week would be our goal.
Good. Obviously, because it impacts with people driving and the hybrid model we're going in, have there been changes to the start or end times of either building? Will an early drop-off or a late pickup be permitted in either building, or any building, I should say? Start and end times?
But the high school start and end times will be the same. The only changes may be within that start and end time, but that would have no impact on families.
Great.
Right. Same with the middle school.
Parkdale, same start and end?
Yeah, similar. Similar. I know in the past you've been able to drop off your students starting at 8:30. I'm hoping to make that happen again, but again, I have to figure out where we're gonna hold the students until they can go to their classrooms. So it's a work in progress.
Excellent. Lockers. Will lockers be used at the middle and high school?
Again, at the start of the year, no, but that'll be a fluid situation as we head into the winter months.
Is the hybrid model saving the district money? And if so, will there be a tax rebate or tax credit? Anything to help offset the increased cost of childcare? Mr. Russ, Miss George.
Well, unfortunately not, because in many ways the new model is actually costing us additional monies. We are spending tens of thousands of dollars in additional expenses for PPE, cleaners, the barriers, masks, the nursing supplies, additional transportation. So our expenses are actually going up considerably. So there would be no way to offer any type of tax rebate or credit. It's a very challenging model to pull off. It would be much easier for us to come back full time because we know how to do that and we do it quite well. So these altered hybrid models are something new. And as I mentioned in my last statement, and it's changing every day. And unfortunately, usually those changes come with costs associated with them. And so, unfortunately, if anything else, we're looking at other budget issues that we're going to have to deal with in order to take care of all the necessary changes that we need to make under this new model. And in terms of our staff are still, all of them still working full time. Depending on what model they're in, they're either working in person 2 days, and then the other 3 days they will be here for full days online. And in many cases, their days are actually longer because students are reaching out to them in the evenings after 5 and 6 o'clock at night, and our teachers are responding to them at that time. So, if anything, this makes our lives far more complicated to manage this and to make it work properly.
A couple last minute questions came in, and I'm just going to scroll through them. But the one remaining question that we had prepared is, obviously, as much as the kids love their instruction, what makes the day for most kids are the extras. So things like the Academic Learning Center, ELT, clubs, virtual clubs, Mr. Leibrock, fall sports. And if any of those are running, can students, both in-person and virtual students, participate? If you can talk about that for a little bit, I'll scroll through my email and we should be able to bring this to a close here.
And you go, Mr. Roberts, all you.
Okay, just briefly, we're gonna stick to getting our instruction in order at the beginning of the year, and slowly incorporate our academic learning center, slowly incorporate our clubs, whether that be in person or virtual. More than likely starting virtual for all, with the goal of that becoming in person. But all of those things will happen. They will not happen the first week. They probably won't happen the second week. But as soon as we settle into this new norm, we will start to bring those things back in the most appropriate way, because we value them. I know that our students value them, and it's really important to us that we are able to bring those groups together.
And I would echo that at the middle school. The only minor exception might be the ELT, to try to get that going as soon as possible. Probably not the first day or the first week, but we will follow suit with what Bill just said about the high school, with the exception of ELT.
And the largest exception to that would be fall sports, Mr. Leibrock?
Right. So the only major change that's been made so far is that fall sports have been postponed until September 21st. In any of the recent meetings with the governor, he has had no new updates on fall sports. So right now it's scheduled to start on the 21st. However, I would expect some significant updates to that within the next couple of weeks. If for some reason the fall sports don't run this fall, there is a plan that the State Public High School Athletic Association has to run the fall sports in the spring.
A couple emails that came in. I believe we've answered most of them, if not all of them, but just to acknowledge them. Will parents be given a list of symptoms that would not allow their child to go to school? Can we send home something that kind of gives parents guidance on when to and when not to send their child? We are working on that. Will students with any COVID symptoms, such as just a runny nose or a cough, be made to stay home? Again, that would be similar. But yes, students who stay home will have the opportunity to work remotely until whatever threshold is crossed to get them back. Fall sports, we just talked about that. The high school day, the days, in-person days are the same length of day as they were prior to this. Great. Jess, this popped in when you were talking about what to do on Wednesdays and the rest. Do parents have to keep track of what special to go to, or would there be some communication through a Google Classroom or something like that?
Yeah, we'll communicate the letter day. It'll probably come from the classroom teacher the prior day in an agenda or through the classroom. Don't forget tomorrow's an F day and to do your special, whatever special it might be for that grade level on that letter day.
Great. Question regarding the busing model. We know we're falling into less kids on the bus, but are the bus runs the same? Specifically, is the high school Parkdale run still a joint run? Miss George.
We're still working on the bus runs and waiting to hear back on the various surveys of whether families will be requiring transportation for their children. With the reduced number of students per bus, it is going to be a challenge for us. So as soon as we have that information, we will be sharing it.
Right. Are we confident in the cleaning between the AM and PM? And I know, Doug, you spoke about that and our electrostatic, like Ghostbuster backpacks that we're wearing to clean the rooms and all the rest of that. Teachers having training to conduct more streamlined virtual learning. Yes, we have a major technology initiative, but also that St. John Fisher College of Education pedagogical initiative, and that is going on literally as we speak. Synchronous learning in grades K through 4. Jess, you talked about that. They will be assigned a room or a teacher for those that are out full time. Is there any consideration to starting off, Mr. Russ, the year in a full remote model like a West Seneca or a Maryvale at this time?
Right at this moment, that is not our intention, but that is still possible, depending on how our circumstances change. When we talked about the idea, when we originally had to come up with 3 models, the full return, the hybrid, or the remote model, the purpose for that is because it could be something that comes from the governor's office that requires us to go to a remote model. We need to respond to that almost immediately. So within a very short time frame, we would move from a hybrid to a remote model. And of course, the parents would be notified that prior to doing it.
And then last question for this just came in under the wire. If there is a time where a child should be on synchronously, I believe this mostly would do at the middle school, but through no fault of their own are being transported from one parent to another or parents to a grandparent, you'll work with that family to come up with some sort of win-win solution on that. I would assume, Mr. Brown, the high school is a little more independent, but go ahead, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, oh, certainly. I mean, our intent is to provide schedules so the students and parents will know the expectation prior. So obviously, if there's a synchronous lesson going on this time, we would hope that you would do everything you can to avoid those times, or not to avoid them, but to make sure that your child's able to do it. Certainly, we're going to be flexible, in how that works, and in providing the student our motto here is, we're all in this together. We're all making the best of this, and we're going to do everything we can to support each other. So we're certainly going to keep that motto going strong in the fall.
Great. That brings us to the end of our prepared questions. Before I turn it over to Mr. Russ to close it, the next two sessions, tonight at 6:30 and tomorrow at 8 a.m., we're going to follow the same format that we followed here. However, any questions that you still have or come in between now and then, we will address those in the other sessions. But the basic outline was so consistent between the sessions, we're just going to follow it. If you do have questions between now and then, or at any point during the upcoming school year, reach out directly to your child's principal. If you don't know where to reach out to, though, the email address you're going to want to go to is reopen@eak12.org. reopen@eak12.org. I get those and will forward them to the appropriate person or persons at any time during this upcoming school year. That is a monitored email box. So I thank you for letting me moderate. Great job on the answers, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Russ to kind of land this plane for us. We're using your headset look.
Again, I'd like to thank everyone for being with us today and for sharing your questions and concerns. It's really helpful as we move through the process. And I think as Mr. Roberts was just saying about, the idea of reinstating clubs and the ALC and those types of things that we know are very important to our students, and they're very important to us. Like any type of change, it takes us some time to work through the process. But once we're working at it for a few weeks, we'll get into our stride and we'll have a much better idea about how it's actually working. And we'll inform you along that way about how we need to make adjustments. And I just want to say that I'm just really grateful for everyone's patience through this process. And I know how difficult and in some ways unsettling and people are scared about the disease, and those are all very legitimate concerns, and we are concerned about those things as well. And we just want you to know that we are here in a partnership, as we always have been in the past. I think one thing that's really truly amazing about our community is the support that we show for one another. And I know that we can get through this, and I'm very, very confident that once we are ready, our teachers are going to come back on September 1st. We're going to have some time with them for training and preparation purposes, and really, really confident that when students return on the 10th, that we'll be ready to go and be able to provide your child with an excellent experience here at school. So again, thank you for being here, and stay tuned. We'll keep you informed as changes do come our way. Thank you.